Welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, the podcast that is now in its 10th year. This week on Heart and Hand, we started this show with a title, and we're going to finish this season with one as well. So, hello everyone, welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar, and joining me on this season opening look ahead to what we can expect over the next tumultuous 9 months are some of the very cream of Heart and Hand. Yes, we've brought out the big guns, so to speak. So let me immediately turn to the biggest of knobs. First of all, Mr. Cameron James Bell.
David, how are you, my friend? It's wonderful to be back.
10 years, Brad. 10 years we've been doing this shite.
Feels like 20.
It does. I've aged. There's no doubt about that. Joining me is someone who is, let's be honest, the heart, the soul, and more importantly, the work rate of Heart and Hand, Mr. Ian Hogg.
How you doing, brother? 10 years, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting round a table to record, and now we've got the wonders of Skype, so you don't need to leave the house.
No, I don't need to leave the house. Yes, and of course, along the way, we've managed to pick up a few stragglers, and none struggle with such style as Mr. Martyn Ramsey. Good evening, Martyn.
Good evening, David. Good evening, gentlemen. Happy birthday, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's always fun when we kick off the season, and because you have that hope, don't you? Nothing's gone wrong yet. Even though with Rangers it quite often doesn't take long. But we've had a good pre-season. I think it's fair to say it wrapped up at the weekend there with a victory over Derby County. And Cammy, for the first time in, I don't even want to bother remembering, Rangers haven't had to basically kick out an entire squad and bring a whole new one in from scratch.
No, it hasn't been a massive rebuilding process, which we're usually discussing around about this time of year. We've had a very, very strong pre-season, and obviously we'll include within that some of the European qualifiers, which obviously we've already played. And I think we've done very well. I think that we've recruited very well. We've had some very, very significant losses. May he rest in peace. We've done really well in terms of coming in with it. But again, obviously the huge losses. My beloved Kyle Lafferty. We'll come back to that, I'm sure.
Yes, did he fall or was he pushed, or could he just not be arsed standing up in the first place? I suppose we'll never know. Hoggy, another thing that's quite pleasant is starting a season with the same manager we kicked off the last one with, and actually the fans quite liking him.
Yeah, there's not been a lynching yet, and you know, there's been no standing in bushes. There's been no plan B as to do plan A better. There's been no tune of jackets and zips. So Andy's a handsome dude. So I think we're all still very much in love with Steven Gerrard, apart from Martyn. I'm going to hear a sigh any minute. But you know, I think I agree with Cammy. I think he's done pretty well over the summer. Last summer, there was somewhat of a rebuilding exercise yet again. There felt a bit of a scattergun approach because there was so many positions that required to be filled. There was questions over James Tavernier and whether he was going to be a captain or even a decent captain. And we've brought in 7 players. We've let some go, but there hasn't been that wholesale rip it up and start again. I think that's to Steven Gerrard's. I think that's, you know, we praise him for that. Some of the guys that have come in, probably a bit of a question mark. Some just seem to have hit the ground running. Your Edmondsons and Aribos or Aribos, or however the fuck you say it. Philip Helander looked every bit the Viking warlord at the weekend. And so all feels pretty decent stuff. And the manager, along with his backroom team, I think they've got quite a bit of stock from last season, I think, David.
Long-term listeners will know that I don't trust blonde men, and it's my hang-up. But I've been proven right repeatedly throughout my life. And the one time I relaxed that rule was for Stephen Naismith. and look what happened. So Philip Helander got a bit to go, really, before I fully embrace him. I'm just kidding, folks. I'm like everyone else, like a kid with a new toy. And Martin, it was a signing. Let's start then with the signings, because he's the biggest one so far, £3 million. Stuart Robertson was saying last week that Rangers will probably bring in, whether there's money for one more big signing, was how he put it. And obviously the Morelos situation is yet to be resolved. But signing a big strapping centre half for millions of pounds from Serie A, my God, it was just like the old days.
Yeah. I think it caught most of us by surprise. It was not a huge window of time between it being rumoured and completed. And I'm not sure at the end of May whether any of us expected, especially with Edmondson coming in and Katic, I think, quite firmly regaining his place in the thoughts of the manager that we expected over £3 million to be spent on a centre half. I think we expected a fourth to be added because we really have to have four. We struggled with that last season when Macaulay was no longer an option. And yeah, Gerrard could point to the fact that, well, we outscored the rest of the division last season, but we did lose some sloppy goals. That's a very simple view of the stats last year. I guess it could be argued if we'd put more games to bed earlier, then the pressure wouldn't have weighed so highly on the defence. And maybe that is still the problem area we need to get right. But there's a good mix of talent there. I think Edmondson got rave reviews, and rightly so, against Progress. I don't know what you boys think. The quickest defender we've got?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And we seem to lack that recovery pace, which at Ibrox, when you're playing against teams that sit in, you need badly. And I don't really think we had that too much last season. He seems good with the ball. Challenging for headers is maybe something that gives me a little bit of concern. But we have a complement of skills there, and it's as we saw last season when he got Goldson in, he got Katic in, and more importantly, he got McGregor in. That was the base in which that early start in Europe was certainly built upon.
Let me play devil's dick advocate though here, lads. 4 first choice centre backs. I mean, they look all of them look as though they could go in and play, and that's great. But realistically, they're not going to play. That's generally why I think most of us expected the fourth one to be either an older, experienced player or perhaps even one of the youngsters. Young Lewis Mayo, of course, had featured quite regularly in the pre-season. Will there be the temptation to change the defence about? Because that was something that a lot of fans were concerned about last season, that the defence seemed to alter very regularly, and maybe we're behind the times. Maybe it's just a sign of our age, that I think we were always brought up to be told you want a steady back four in defence. That's, you can change up front, you can change wide players, etc. But you need to have that understanding. I mean, Hoggy, what's your thoughts on that?
I fully expect for the majority of games at the start of the season that the centre backs will be Goldson and Helander, because that's the guys that we've paid the money for. Goldson, I thought, tailed away at the end of last season, or maybe from about February onwards. But you've got to remember, Goldson had only played something like 20 games in 3 years. Last year he played over 40, I think, and he'd never really done that for a number of years. So this year's going to be pivotal for him, but I think he starts. Helander, we've paid a lot of money for him, so he's not going to play. Katic last season always got better when he didn't play. I think we've all said that. But to be fair to him, he came back into the side when Worrell, it was clear, he wasn't going to stay and didn't want to stay. Katic came in and did very well. He's also a huge goal threat in the box. We saw it on Sunday that he won everything at the back and in the opposition penalty area. The thing that really impressed me with Edmondson, though, I agree with Martin. I think he'll probably take a little bit of time to learn how to play up here and learn what balls to go for and what not to go for. His passing is superb. long range passing, 40, 50-yard passing right on the money. So I think, as Martin says, you got a range of players there, but I fully expect the two guys that we've shelled out a total of £5 million on, Golson and Helander, to be the first choice. The others need to be at it to take their opportunities. We're going to play games in Europe like Progress away, where we think we're through. We're going to play East Fife in the Cup. We're going to play games like that. That's where I think we'll see some rotation. But when it's games that we need to be on it, if you like, no disrespect to the others, when it's Kilmarnock away, when it's Hibs at Ibrox, when it's Midfield from Denmark away, you'll see, I think, Helander and Golson play.
Cammy, the one area that maybe surprisingly Rangers haven't brought a player in, just based on how last season ended, is left back, because obviously we brought in round about this time last year Borna Barisic. He had a bit of an injury-strewn season, didn't quite manage to cement that first team place. John Flanagan filled in towards the end of the season, did well. Andy Halliday had also filled in on occasion and did reasonably well, but I think there was a suspicion that Barisic might be on his way, and wasn't based on flimsy evidence. The manager had spoken in fairly derogatory terms about him a few times over the season. It looked as though he'd be on his way, but he has featured in the pre-season. But that said, when we played Progress, biggest match of the admittedly only three, the only three competitive ties, in came Andy Halliday. So were you a little surprised perhaps that Rangers didn't go out and get someone in that area?
I was surprised in terms of, we have to make a decision that, what we want to do there. And I don't know if we're quite at that point yet, because, on paper, it certainly looks like a position that, could be a significant hole in the team. Barisic, for me, I wonder if Gerrard's thought process is, with Barisic, he's got a player who is a natural left back who has the ability to be able to play there. I think Flanagan is somewhat limited, and I think Andy Halliday will give you absolutely everything. And so he wants to be able to try and use that position, for the different resources that he has in it, like he would anywhere else in the pitch. But those are very different in terms of the selection options that he can rely back on. Barisic has been making the right sounds in terms of trying to integrate himself into the team. I'm not overly keen on John Flanagan, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I've got a lot of sentimentality towards Andy Halliday, which is actually unfair, because there were periods last season, especially in Old Firm games, etc., where Halliday looked perfectly solid in terms of what he was doing, more than capable of playing at a left-back position against the toughest opposition. So the manager, I don't think it's going to be an area that he's going to specifically recruit for now. Could be an area that he puts back to those players that I've just mentioned and said, one of you is going to feature, one of you is going to be back up, and one of you is probably going to spend a bit of time on the bench. The three of you have now got the opportunity rather, to prove to me what priority and what order that will be in. We could go and shop in the January window if it becomes too much of a problem area. But I don't think we're as bad as we make out. I don't think that we've got real crisis concerns there. Barisic just has to keep it up if that's what he's looking to be able to do. And I think that really that's his only possible opportunity to play for the first team is in that position. He really needs to ensure that he backs up a lot of the talk that he's come out with action.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly should have the talent. He's got the pedigree, and he should be able to nail that position down this season. And as you said, the attitude's been good. He's said the right things. He's impressed, certainly the manager, and here's hoping. Look, if it took him a year to settle in and we get a couple of good years out of him, then move him on for a few quid, brilliant. That's fine. It can happen. Some players hit the ground running, some don't. Into the midfield then, Martin, and it was a regular complaint from pretty much every Rangers fan. I can't think of many who didn't feel this way, that Rangers would struggle against packed defences to have a player who could play on the edge of a boxed-in team, or a team sitting in behind the low block, as it's known by those of us who are the cognoscenti. So They have maybe had the answer to our prayers with the arrival of Joe Aribo from Charlton Athletic. Now, this is a big signing for Rangers, which might sound odd because Rangers have used the cross-border loophole, £300,000 it'll end up. But you don't get a player like that for 300 grand. There's a lot of, shall we say, signing ons and agents and whatnot, and he's on a big wage at Rangers. He really was the number one target. I think that was quite clear throughout the summer. And already he does look as though he provides something different to what we had.
Yeah, he does. I mean, we've played a lot of games in July already. I'd go as far as saying that the progress game at home is probably the one that will reflect our season's reality more than any other, certainly at home, in terms of teams coming in, being very organised. I thought they actually defended very well, and us being presented with that problem again. And we weren't as penetrative as we perhaps hoped, but again, it's July and all that. But here's this guy. Both goals, actually, we'll talk about Ojo in a minute, I'm sure, as well. Everything that we lacked last season. That you can get your numbers behind the ball, you can frustrate as much as you possibly can, but we've got someone now prepared to take the ball with the skill and belief and just run straight at the heart of trouble. And that sets the hairs running, and it creates space. And he took his goal brilliantly, and Ojo's goal was from nothing. Goals from nothing that didn't happen enough, especially at Ibrox, and cost us badly. And if we were doing a Room 101, I think I'd put scorching pre-season hot takes right into it, good or bad, just settle down and let's see where we are. But if that can continue, and the interest that boy had around him didn't come from nothing. His performances, his numbers suggest that teams should have been looking at him. And for exactly that reason, he can make things happen from deeper than maybe Arfield can, who is more dangerous, just kind of hovering further up. He will run from deep and as I said, do things that we were simply unable to do because we didn't have that dynamism in midfield. A lot of hard workers, a lot of square passers, a lot of triers, but no one that will say, give me the ball and I'm going to make something happen myself. Christ, how long has it been since we've had that?
Yeah, the thing I like about Aribo is that he can dominate a game from midfield, but further up. I think a lot of the times when we think about guys who run a midfield, they tend to be deeper lying. They don't have to be. And he has that ability. He's not a number 10 in the traditional sense of, getting the ball and beating a man in extraordinary moments of skill, although he is very skillful. But he's the type of guy who can just control the tempo of the game and keep the passing moving and link up moves. But he does it, as you say, in that last third. And
he's an old school eight.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the box-to-box thing. It's not waiting for the ball or the game to reach him, because we have players, Kent last season, Arfield last season, who can still be dangerous when the game reaches them, especially on the break, because when they're covered in defenders and markers, it's not been quite as brilliant. But it is taking that control, taking that responsibility, and responsibility is the word. Still too many last year. Rugby Park, February or end of January, whenever it was. No one crying out for the ball when the situation the bubble was burst. The situation was in danger, correctly, of collapsing. No one just wanted that responsibility of taking a game by the scruff of the neck. And hopefully, it's far too early to say conclusively, but he has the kind of numbers, he has the kind of reputation to be that kind of player.
Hoggy, a guy that I think we're all excited about. Is kind of a new player, but clearly there's a lot of history in that. Stephen Davis. Stephen Davis arrived in January, wasn't fit, really struggled for the opening couple of months, and I think we were all perhaps a bit concerned that, we've seen this movie before, guy returns to Rangers, not the same player, but improved throughout the season to, by the end of it, be showing what a classy midfielder he is. And I have a feeling he's going to be very important for us this season, sitting there at the base of midfield, and he controls the game, but he does it in a way that is great from an attacking point of view because he'll start things for you.
The likes of Stephen Davis complements Joe Aribo brilliantly because, you're right. Davis came into the team last year, and it was, catapulted into the team in Rugby Park alongside Jermaine Defoe, and history will prove that it didn't work. They weren't fit. The game kind of passed them by, and a lot of the season passed Davis by. But towards the end, he was excellent. He's had a proper pre-season behind him, followed by pre-season games, followed by competitive games, albeit against St Joseph's of Gibraltar and one game against Progress, where actually I didn't think he had a particularly great game. But in terms of the way that we're going to play going forward, I think we've seen in a few of the friendlies, Blackburn for example, that if Ryan Jack plays at Ryan Jack, who divides opinion, he's very hard working, but he's a kind of 6-7 out of 10 where you're wanting that wee bit more. When he's playing in front of Davis, they complement each other quite well. When Davis isn't there and Jack comes back one, for example, to play in that role, he's clearly not as good. It's no surprise. We need Davis to remain fit. We need to also find adequate backup for him, David, just in case we don't get the full season out of Davis. But having that pre-season, showing up in the pre-season games, showing up in the European games to date, Stephen Davis, I would go as far to say as he's going to be one of, if not the most important player for us this season, because it allows the likes of Aribo just to go, to even if he's taking the ball deep, just to go and play 1-2s and get forward. And Davis is always sitting there, mopping up, getting the ball, playing the kind of quarterback role, and playing the ball forward. I think, Martin, you mentioned plenty of players that can play the ball side to side. Davis just keeps the ball going and going forward all the time.
Cammy, we've got Ryan Jack, Stephen Davis, other options in there. Greg Docherty's returned and he's caught the eye in a few pre-season friendlies, etc. So we're not short of bodies in there, but eyebrows were raised when Ross McCrory headed off on a season-long loan to Portsmouth. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think it's a great opportunity for him to do what Greg Docherty has just completed and have a great season away on loan and not feel the frustration from being unable to get into the first team at Rangers consistently, because it's that kind of catch-22 of where he plays. Does he play as a holding mid, where actually I really like him? Does he play in at a centre half, where, as we've just mentioned, we've spent a lot of money being able to try and improve upon? It's difficult for him to be able to do that, and I think his chances are very limited. I know that there were a lot of concerns from the fans that Gerrard, I think it was just a miscommunication, but there was a concern that Gerrard had to come out and address, which was talking about McCrory going and Portsmouth having the option to buy him, with the likelihood being that they would buy him, and that wasn't the case. And I think that probably shows where the loan would be excellent, but we don't want to sell him because we definitely see him as an asset for the future. And when you see, again, the season that Docherty had at Shrewsbury, there's definite advantages to being able to go there. And even in the very short time, because, I mean, I'm following these things, even in the very short time that McCrory's been there, he's already getting some really positive reviews. I mean, the fans are really taking to him. They're seeing what's there. There's an absolute talent within that boy, and if he goes away off, succeeds in the loan spell, continues to develop, but gets the platform within which to do it, then I hope that he comes back at the end of the season, and we can start to envelop him within the team if that's going to be possible. Because I absolutely want to keep Ross McCrory. He's very, very important, I believe, to Rangers in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand that move, because I admit I was, really? Ross McCrory's going? But then when I look at it, Jack, Davis, Aribo, Kamara, of course, Greg Docherty, Scott Arfield, you thinking, is he going to play that regularly? And maybe it is better for us long term for him to go out and play 40, 50 games this season and then come back ready. So, of course, to up front, that's where a lot of Rangers signings have come in from, Martin. We'll get to the striking positions at the moment, but we'll call them the wide positions. Jordan Jones, we knew about, had been tied up in January on a pre-contract. He's arrived in alongside Jake Hastie, youngster from Motherwell, and Greg Stewart, perhaps a little bit of a surprise signing. The star signing out of that, if you like, or the one that probably people were most excited about, is Shea Ojo, hoping to have the same impact as that Ryan Kent had last year. I have seen, though, some concern, and I think it's valid, that with Daniel Candeias now having left, Ryan Kent obviously has gone from last season, looks at this point, given what Jurgen Klopp said, that if Rangers want to sign him, we'll need to sign him permanently, and that might be beyond us financially. There is concern that maybe in these wide positions, Rangers might be a little bit weaker than we were last season. What do you think?
Well, Ojo's a bit of an unknown. I think he does fall into that Kent category, and I would expect all of them to, as is the nature of wide players, to fluctuate in terms of their form. That seems to be in the rules for old-fashioned wingers, certainly. And it was the same for Kent before we slightly revised history all summer. He took a while to settle on. His impact in more ways than one was very much in the second half of the season. And so it'll all depend. We're taking a big gamble. Certainly on Hastie, who I think raw would be the word.
Very.
And for the future, for sure. Jones, the concern still is, will he be suited to a team that doesn't counter-attack often? And my concerns are still very much in place because we've just not seen enough. So we'll have to wait and see in that. And as I said, Ojo, God, he can do things that Kent didn't, like the other night, and just a goal from absolutely nowhere. But are we going to get that consistently? He looks stronger, he looks more direct, but again, we're talking about players that we don't really know well enough. In the case of Ojo, Candeias wanted to go. I don't think there's much doubt about that. But I guess last season we knew what we were getting from him, and we knew exactly what we had there. But you're right, we now have 4. Stewart was the one I've forgotten about, which I don't think I'm the only one when we're discussing new Rangers players. He seems to be the one that kind of goes under the radar a wee bit. So we've got 4 players that we just either don't know anything about enough, or we don't know if they're going to be suited to playing for Rangers. And I don't know many times when we've had the conversation when signing SPL players is that they may shine for their particular club because of the way that they play, and it's not the way that we play. So there's a lot of unknowns there, yeah. And it would have been with Candeias, if in a perfect world, to retain a wee bit of what we know, I guess.
Can that work for you, what Martin refers to there, Hoggy, with Greg Stewart? Can that actually work in his favour, that there really isn't much expectation? I don't think I'm being unfair there. I don't think there are many Rangers fans who are expecting huge things from him. He was a little bit of a surprise signing, and he's clearly been signed on what he's done at Kilmarnock as opposed to how he finished the season with Aberdeen. He's not going to play every week, I wouldn't have thought, but he does have certain abilities that perhaps we maybe have lacked, and I'm a great believer that this squad is being built, that the manager realises the need for composite players, and by that what I mean is it would be lovely if we could get someone who could do all of it, but we can't. We can't afford that. It's that simple. So he's looking at the likes of, say, someone like Jones. Jones's strength is getting the ball and running at defenders. That's what he does. He doesn't tend to dribble past them. He doesn't tend to hit the byline and whip a crossover. He gets the ball and he very directly hurls towards goal, and sometimes we'll need that. Stewart can play in and around, clever player, nice touch, can work well with others, a la what Scott Arfield does for us, very importantly for us. Hastie's got raw pace, frightening pace, and he can finish. Ojo, as Martin said, has that X factor. He's probably the most talented, not probably, undoubtedly the most talented natural talent out of the whole bunch. And is it a case of the manager saying, between all of them, they can do all the stuff we need. I just need to manage them properly to get it out of them at the right time. And maybe as fans, we'll need to accept that we'll get frustrated sometimes with these guys, but it's about their overall contribution.
We need a squad, David, and a squad to get us through the rigours of 4 competitions, especially in the first 3 months. Greg Stewart, I like everyone else, and no disrespect to Greg Stewart, I, like everyone else, thought, really? Much in the same way as I thought about Jordan Jones. And again, no disrespect to Jordan Jones, because I think to Martin's point, Jordan Jones looks great for Kilmarnock because they play in the break. And that was the Steve Clarke way. So, but we did see him get the ball and really drive at Progress Niederkorn, won a penalty, probably should have had another. So, hey, what do I know? Greg Stewart's 29, doesn't quite fit the mould of the others. All being young players, all being potential players that you'd look to develop at Ibrox. Greg Stewart, I think, is almost there from the, he's played in the SPL or the SPFL as it might have been then, and he was, I think he was in the shortlist for the Players Player of the Year around about 2015 with Dundee. He went to big money move for Dundee to Birmingham. He did all right, and then just started a series of loans to Aberdeen, Kilmarnock, and back to Aberdeen again. It's almost a case of we know what we're getting from him, because he's not going to improve significantly. He's going to be a guy who, like you say, gives us something a little bit different, almost the Alec Cleland signing, if you like, of the summer. That we need a squad. We need to bolster the squad. We can't always rely on young players. We do need some players in the squad who aren't going to be regular starters, but do have the battle scars and the mental scars of some rejection and some failure, etc. And maybe that's the thinking. So he's very much a... Martin didn't remember him, so he's absolutely flown under the radar, really. And you only kind of remember him when he comes on as a sub. So I think that's going to be his season. He's going to be there to try and provide something a little bit different, probably in the SPFL.
And then, of course, we come to Cammy, the what seems like the eternal question at Rangers, and that's the striking positions. Now, as it stands on paper, I think Rangers fans could justifiably feel very confident. We've got a fit and sharp-looking Jermaine Defoe, who is clearly very excited about the season, and we have Alfredo Morelos, but that is complicated by the fact that Alfredo Morelos has been linked with moves away for a while. Nothing has come of it so far. There are no bids in for him. And the constant speculation appears to be pissing off Stephen Gerrard, who spoke about it yesterday. It kind of feels like we're a wee bit in limbo until the window shuts and he's either here or he's not.
That's exactly it. And I get that it's frustrating, and it's frustrating the manager. He came out and kind of pretty much said as much in his post-match against Derby yesterday. It is frustrating. I think we need to look at another option within there. And right now we're a bit blind because we don't know whether or not to buy that striker in this window or not. And if Morelos goes, and I know that obviously Gerrard has said in several press conferences he doesn't want to entertain last minute bids. Well, sometimes you don't get that choice, unfortunately. We could be suddenly bereft of options. Jermaine Defoe, I think, from his overall levels of fitness, his sharpness, etc., is pretty extraordinary. And don't get wrong, I mean, we've not faced huge, significant, tests yet. But when he has played so far this season, he's always ready to come into it. I think that the Rangers support are probably pretty split on whether or not Jermaine Defoe could be a relied upon starter or a very good option to come off the bench during the game. Whereas everyone wants to see Morelos succeed. I want to see Morelos succeed because I think it's good for Rangers and hopefully good for him in the long run. But the challenge here is, as we've discussed obviously in the patron shows, is Rangers fans also need to understand that if a bid does come in for Alfredo Morelos that is, let's say, £15 million, for example, we cannot invest that money into a £15 million player. We need to buy a £5 million player, because if we go to that extent, we also need to pay that person, and that's the remainder of that injection of cash. So it's still very much a movable feast. It's difficult because I would want us to, I suppose really what I'm ideally looking for is absolute worst case scenario. Someone does come in with a bid, the bid is accepted, the business is done. It's very, very quick for Alfredo, that we're able to respond just as quickly with another target that we've already got lined up and set in mind. I know that Ruth from Leeds was obviously discussed as I still like him. I would still take him.
He's a cracking player. I mean, he is. If you haven't seen much of Kemar, folks, he's a cracking player. But also, Cammy, and let's not forget, this is important, that if we were to sign him, we could sing the roof is on fire. Not because he would literally be on fire, but because metaphorically, after he scored a goal, we could sing that.
We could.
And you see where I'm going with that, don't you?
I do, but then I think you could probably see Martin Ramsey giving up his season ticket. I think
Martin frowns on any sort of frippery.
He does not like joviality.
Martin, how do you feel about people who have the toilet roll the wrong way?
Oh, I don't even.
See, I knew it. The reason it came to mind is my wife put the toilet roll in my bathroom rather than in hers, and she did it the wrong way, and I was like, why would you do that? It doesn't matter. And I thought, that's the end of society as we fucking know it, when we don't care about, we're British for Christ's sake. But yeah, sorry, I'm just a glimpse into my life.
Can you imagine, sorry Cammy, can you imagine Big McGowan with that song? Jesus Christ, can you imagine someone sang it on his bus?
The
bus convener who walks about looking for people might be having fun and ordering them off his bus.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, you can sing when you finish your Sudoku. But no, I think from that aspect, we do need to make sure that we do have alternate options, and that can be very make or break for us. I mean, again, like you say, I think that we can always rely on Alfredo to score goals against pretty much anyone in the league. I would like to be able to buy a striker who's capable of scoring goals against Celtic, because that would be, a little bit of a nice change. But again, that might be something that we go with what we have at the moment, and then potentially see changes again in January. Obviously, we were very close to that scenario about 18 months or so ago. But my expectation, and listen, I'll be clear on this, and I'm not saying for a minute that we're getting shortchanged off Alfredo Morelos, absolutely not. But what I will say is that we've improved and increased his contract. Now, everybody knows that's with a view to being able to try and facilitate a move and then getting money in for ourselves. Absolutely. But whilst he's here, whilst he's on that contract, as far as I'm concerned, he's been taken care of. So in that space, I would expect to see his absolute utmost. And that's what I would want from him. And it comes back to probably what we've discussed in a number of different key positions, either centre-half, left-back, etc. Ideally, you do want two guys who are capable of fighting each other for that place. And if Alfredo can't do it, then I think Jermaine Defoe is an excellent substitute to be able to try and come on to do that. And we know the kind of treatment that Alfredo gets up here as well. Fortunately, Jermaine's got a little bit more experience in his head, and he finds space that I think sometimes Morelos can't quite find yet. He's a little bit more direct, obviously a little bit more bullish. Whereas Defoe, I think, is a little bit more wily, and that definitely can bode us well. Either one of them been sold, obviously Morelos been sold, or Defoe getting an injury.
I think there's definitely been a Tim who's taken a tinkle in your gene pool there, Cammy. You're not allowed to sell things that you loan. Now, I know that the trick back in the day from that lot was to go to Rumbelows, get a telly, and then it was out the back for 50 quid. Yeah, but
no, I don't think we can. I don't think we can sell Jermaine. I mean, I would like to, so we could buy him ourselves. But yeah, no, I think no, but as obviously
sell it to us and keep the fee.
Yeah, I think that the main thing with Defoe is, you can always trust him to create opportunities. You absolutely can. His footballing brain is second to none. It really, really is. And we can absolutely tap into that. And I know that he's obviously said in some of the press conferences recently, he's really enjoying being at Rangers and actually wishes he was here before he came and had spent more time at the club. And I think we'll see a lot of our players getting the benefit of his experience as well. It's tough. That for me is the Rubik's Cube of the team.
Apparently he's a vegan.
Oh,
you
really?
Get that? Yeah, you get that these days.
No. Listen, if it keeps you playing into your 40s, then he can go as meat-free as he wants, but no, that's not cricket. As soon as he retires, I want him having a steak.
You want to take him out for a burger, so come on, right, Jermaine, sit down, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have this, and it's not going to be good for you, but you're going to enjoy it. As you all know, I mean, I've got a very healthy diet, so I feel I can comment on elite sportsmen and what they eat to keep going.
The functioning diet of a 13-year-old boy.
Do you think Jermaine Defoe eats pickled onion Space Raiders?
He should. Everybody should. They're the greatest crisps that have ever been invented. Hoggy's referring to, folks, the fact my diet is basically I get up in the afternoon and have Belvita breakfast biscuits for lunch, have 2 packs of Space Raiders, and at night I have a takeaway. But I'm very skinny, so it works. I mean, my inside look as though, it looks like a Times flat when the CSA arrive, but that doesn't matter. Martyn, moving on and back to the serious stuff. We are not asking the squad to turn around a 25 point deficit. We're not asking the squad to make a leap. I think that's unfair. Martyn and I do the EPL show on the Heart and Hand Network on Patreon. And if we were to say to Manchester United, you need to win the league this year, that's insane, really, because they finished 30, 40 points behind. They're not going to make that up in 1 year. Rangers have chipped away at the last few years, haven't got as close as we'd like, but there is a feeling because of what's going on across the city. They've downgraded their manager. Their squad appears to be in a bit of a downgrade at the moment as well. They weren't as good last season. There were signs. I mean, this is not Rodgers' first season Celtic we're sending them into battle against. What are the keys to making that leap?
Well, you've already mentioned it. I think for the first time since 2010, we've had a summer where we've added well to stability. I still think the Warburton summer after winning the championship was felt more kind of an attempt to be revolutionary and failing, but trying to bring that level up considerably. This feels more gradual and more evolved, and that can only be good because the message, hopefully, is getting through, and hopefully pre-season has been targeted towards that more. Hopefully the management team have learnt a few lessons away from home, and how to turn draws into victories, because that's it. That's the ball game. It isn't the Old Firm games. They will kind of cancel themselves out, probably as they did last season. That's not why we didn't win the title. And just knowing how to finish games off and see games out. That's the key. I think Celtic are within range now, and I didn't share the giddy optimism that you all had last summer about just how close we were.
Had to get that in, didn't he? Had to twist the knife. Imagine that. Right, fans being excited about the new season.
Yeah, but they are in range, and for the first time since 2010, I think it is about what we do. I just didn't think it was too big an ask, I think, last summer of the management team and new players, so many new players, to make up that gap when Rodgers was still there, and they weren't regressing too much. I would like to have seen them put under a lot more pressure than they were, and hopefully that will happen this season, because we know what will happen if they are put under pressure this time. And so for the first time, I think we're going into a season where we can see them, really see them close up. And it's now about what we do, and really, as I said, how well the management team have used the summer learning lessons from their first. I mean, the manager's a rookie, right? And his team isn't exactly, his backroom team, isn't exactly chock full of experience in those roles. So they're learning. So hopefully some of those lessons will have been learned and they've been able to implement them. And much of it, in terms of what we do, will be based around your last discussion point, which is the only concern I have right now. Is the only concern I had at the end of May about how we handle this Morelos situation post-September if there is no bid. And that's a worry. Or if there is a bid at the 11th hour and we have not prepared for it. I was told to stop worrying, and it's August and Thursday, so I'll still have a little bit of concern until that's resolved one way or the other. But it is a frustration. It's a frustration for everybody. The manager's clearly frustrated, but he needs to do better just in general about cooling that frustration when he speaks to the media. Because it's not the first time he's basically singled a player out for things like that. And the player is incredibly frustrated. And that doesn't bode well for being able, because that's football. Sometimes a deal can't be done. You know what I mean? Sometimes there just isn't the interest there that we believe should be there. And well, that's going to be a big test of Gerrard's management, how he handles that, because we know what happened with the China thing a couple of years ago. It could take a while to get right, and it's the only area of the pitch, and we didn't get it right last year. There's mitigation because we had the whole fucking team and culture to change, and the Lafferty deal came too late, and we
and Lafferty.
Again. Yeah, but it made sense at the time, right? It did. And we were left with Sadiq in the League Cup final, semi-final, because we were too late with that business. And everything else, I'm really, really comfortable, positive with, because we're building and building. But it's just how that looks, how that tip of the team looks come the end of the month.
If he was a wrestler, Cammy, he'd be the ultimate warrior.
Well, he would. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you get that point on Martyn's shows where he is like Hulk Hogan. He is standing there just drawing the energy from the crowd and getting his second win. That's when he gets off his knee and he comes up from the headlock and he chucks the guy out. Anyway, but as always, Martyn makes tremendous points, and one of them is something which I suppose is a bit of a kind of flag for me, which is where we've discussed many times. Again on the Heart and Hand Network, as we're coming into this season, Celtic have regressed. They are not gaining a lot of fan favour by obviously giving Neil Lennon the job permanently. I think that is going to tip in our favour if Lennon's unable to get the results. The reason why I would mention that is because I am very conscious. I'm not seeing a development from Gerrard being able to disassociate himself from things. He sometimes gets a little bit too personal with things. And I think that Lennon will try, he'll try and make it personal, because he can run a culture of massive victimisation. And in some cases, in that regard, he's like the conspiracy cheerleader. He's done that before. He's done that, obviously, when he was in the job he's in now. What we need to ensure, and what Gerrard needs to ensure, is that he doesn't get drawn into that. He needs to completely disassociate and separate himself from any kind of conversation, comment, snide remark, anything which is said to within which he can potentially have a bite on. Now, I'm not suggesting for a single minute Neil Lennon wins a psychological war against Gerrard, but he has to be very cautious about the things that he decides to come up against, because you know how the media will twist Celtic losing away somewhere and blaming the pitch or blaming the time or blaming the fixture, or the fact that the sun came up that morning, and Gerrard will be asked about it. And what my hope is that he continues doing in previous conferences, where he will turn around and go, "That's nothing to do with me, I'm not going to comment on it." That's his staple line. Even if Lennon does go into the really personal aspects of it, because he'll do it, because whether he chooses to admit it or not, he's incredibly limited as a manager. But this is where he gets his bread and butter from, and that's where he starts to unify the fans. When they start to turn, and they will start to turn, he will start putting out the rallying cries to be able to try and bring them all together. We should just allow our enemy to continue making mistakes and just leave them to it, not even bother kind of getting into it. And that's something which I want to make sure Gerrard is very conscious of as this season progresses.
There's two parts to that, Cammy, isn't there? The first part is almost, it's the advice that Gerrard's given to Morelos, or the orders: stay down and count to 10. He needs to do that himself and bite his tongue. It's that kind of stock answer. The second part to it is Gerrard and the rest of our management team and our players and our support need to look over that fence. And it's not a highly paid Brendan Rodgers who brought a professionalism. For all we can laugh at Brendan Rodgers as a bit of a kind of jokey parody teeth figure, he did bring a bit of a professionalism to that squad, who had gone from Lennon to Mad Ronnie to Brendan Rodgers. Celtic have regressed. Celtic offered a sexist, racist, misogynist manager the job in the showers with a towel round him after the cup final. That's how much the professionalism over there has gone down the pan. And that's what Rangers, as a whole, need to remember when that psychological nonsense will inevitably start. It will get personal. That's the staple of victimhood, but that's what we need to remember at every single turn.
Okay then, folks, that will do us for our season opening roundup. We'll be back next Monday, and that's us live for the season. And of course, Heart and Hand Extra will return next week as well. We're looking forward to what promises to be a very exciting season. And if you want to go through it with us day by day, then all you need to do is go to our Patreon site. That's patreon.com, patreon.com/Heart and Hand, where you will get between 3 and 5 new shows every single day on everything to do with the Bears and everything to do with the Bears in the past as well. We do history, we do current events, we do comedy, we do other football, we do other things. And it's like a staunch Netflix. You don't have to listen to all of it. You can pick and choose your favourites. I mean, I never listen to anything that Cammy's on, for example. But if you don't want to do that, then you're insane, and you can still, though, keep up to date with us and our 2 free shows every single week. I'd just like to thank our executive producers at Playback Media, Mr. Paul Lee and Mr. Paul Miles and Mr. Mike Lee. Not Mike Miles, that would be very, very frightening development over the summer. And to thank my guests. First of all, the splendid Mr. Ian Hogg.
Pleasure, mate. Good to be back.
The tremendous Mr. Cameron James Bell.
Ian, Martin, a pleasure as always.
And of course, the overjoyed and positive Mr. Martin Ramsey.
I'm delighted to be back, and thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
Thank you for listening, folks. I'm very much looking forward to going through this season with you, because I think it is going to finally be our year. We'll be here every single kick of the ball. And, well, let's go.